Emmy-nominated American Morning, CNN, weekdays 6 Eastern.
Thank you. So, Pamela, you've become an outspoken critic of this project in general. The people who are behind it say that what they want it to do is improve relations, to have it be a place of tolerance and a multicultural center, in fact. Do you not believe what they're saying about what the motive is behind building this?
Well, they have been dishonest. First they said it was a mosque, and then they said it was a prayer center, which is a mosque. They've been very shady about the funding. We don't know where the funding is coming from. The imam has advocated for tolerance, and yet in his book he advocates for the Sharia Islamic law, which is radically intolerant. They say it's for outreach. Why there? I mean,
are you against a mosque being built in general in New York City or at this location?
Absolutely not. We are absolutely not against that. We believe that that building is a war memorial. A large piece of the plane fell onto the roof, crashed through that building and damaged it. It's a part of American history. The largest attack, Islamic attack, on America in the history of America, that should be a war memorial. And that building is 152 years old, designed by an architect who was a pioneer in his day. His buildings have been landmarked, and it should be given landmark status. That's Daniel Badger. It's a cemetery. We feel that it's a cemetery and that it's sacred ground, and the dead should be honored. And if it was really outreach, then why is the majority of Americans against it? Why is the majority of New Yorkers against it? Where is the outreach? Why is there not sensitivity to how the Muslims of conscience and Americans feel about this?
Well, let me ask Ibrahim about this. What is your take on the proximity, which is what has generated a lot of the controversy about this center?
I think there is a great deal of pain still residually as a result of the criminal attacks on 9/11, but it was not an Islamic attack. It was a criminal attack. There are two things I'd like to mention. The first is that Muslims, like other people in America, have First Amendment rights in terms of freedom of religion. But the second more important thing is that we reject the notion of collective guilt. We are not collectively guilty for actions that are taken by some people in the name of Islam. Further, I think it's very clear that the Cordoba Institute and a number of Muslims in the United States are really seeking to take a different way of establishing new relationships with America and a new set of relationships with the people of the United States. And this is an ideal way to do that.
600 feet from the biggest terror attack in U.S. history on U.S. soil is the best way to do it. I mean, I think that a lot of the concern is the proximity to ground zero, not necessarily the building of a center.
Well, there are numerous memorials to people who were killed in that attack. And so let's not try to conflate that idea or that notion into the idea of Muslims having the right to have a mosque. I mean, we're not trying to say that people should be compelled to believe in Islam. What we believe is that Muslims have a legitimate role to play in the social fabric of this country. We are part of the interfaith mosaic of the United States. But more than that, I think this particular group of people in the Cordoba Institute can do a huge amount of good, not only for Muslims in New York, but also for interfaith relations throughout the country.
And Pamela, I want to ask you about that. There are 600,000 to 800,000 Muslims just in Manhattan alone, and you did talk about the polling. The polling is interesting because when you take New York City as a whole, according to the Quinnipiac poll, you can say actually yes, that the majority are against it. But then when you break down Manhattan itself, only 36% of people that were in that poll are actually against it. So is there really as big of an outcry about where this is going to be built as some opponents are making it out to be?
Absolutely. This was an attack on America. It was not a criminal attack. It was inspired by jihad. There have been close to 16,000 Islamic attacks since 9/11 across the world. What is being done to address the ideology that inspires jihad? They are inspired by the last book, Repentance, which commands jihad. That's where the outreach should be.
But if you're taking issue with radical Islam, why does the Cordoba House fall into that, in your opinion?
We are asking Muslims to be sensitive to our pain, to our grief. The 9/11 families, we organized a rally, Stop Islamization of America organized a rally. Close to 10,000 people showed up. I mean,
what does that mean, by the way? I was just curious about. I mean, some people would say that's a loaded phrase.
What, Stop Islamization of America? We believe that Islam should be westernized, that America should not be Islamicized. We don't believe in mosquing the workplace. We don't believe in introducing Muslim prayer into public schools.
When you hear this, what goes through your head?
Well, not just the term Islamophobia, but also, frankly, a kind of collective intolerance that is really not conducive to the spirit of what we're trying to do as Muslims in America. I also have to say that, respectfully, Muslims were also victimized by that attack. Muslims died in that attack. They died at the Pentagon. There are Muslims right now in Congress, there are Muslims in the national security system, there are Muslims in the military who would vehemently disagree with the idea that we don't have a right to be a represented part of the American multi-faith mosaic.